If you watched that trailer and thought it was just a pretty montage of costumes and ballrooms, you need to watch it again, because almost every single frame is doing something intentional. Bridgerton has always been a show that communicates through visuals before it communicates through dialogue, and this trailer is no different. The opening shot alone sets a completely different mood from what we've had in previous seasons. Where Season 4 opened with warmth, softness, and that familiar golden glow that made Benedict and Sophie's world feel like a daydream, Season 5 opens with something sharper. The lighting is cooler, the framing is tighter, and the very first face we see is Eloise. Not smiling, not performing for anyone, just standing in a room full of people and looking like she'd rather be absolutely anywhere else. If that isn't the most Eloise thing in the world, then honestly nothing is. But here's where it gets interesting. She's dressed differently, not just in terms of the costume design, which has clearly evolved, but in terms of how she's carrying herself. There's something more restrained about her in this footage. More careful. The Eloise we've known for 4 seasons has always been the loudest person in any room she walks into, whether she means to be or not. She challenges people, she pushes back, she says the thing that nobody else is willing to say out loud. But this trailer is showing us an Eloise who seems to be holding something back, and that tension is immediately gripping because it feels earned. It doesn't feel like the show is softening her. It feels like something happened to her between where Season 4 left off and where Season 5 picks up. And whatever that thing is, it changed her in ways that are going to take the entire season to fully understand. And then there's the moment about 40 seconds into the trailer that genuinely made everything stop. A hand, just a hand, reaching toward hers in a crowd. No face attached to it yet, no context, just that gesture, and the way Eloise looks down at it, like she wasn't expecting it, like she almost doesn't know what to do with it. It's such a small thing, but the way it's filmed, the way the camera lingers on it, just half a second longer than it needs to, tells you everything. This is not going to be a simple love story. Whatever is building between Eloise and whoever this person is, it's going to be complicated and layered and probably the most emotionally complex romance the show has ever attempted. Because Eloise isn't someone who falls easily. She's someone who fights it, who questions it, who pulls apart every feeling she has and holds it up to the light before she lets herself believe in it. And that is exactly the kind of character who, when she finally does fall, makes the audience feel it in a way that's almost overwhelming. The trailer also gives us our first real glimpse of the social season through her eyes. And it's immediately clear that the writers are using the contrast between Eloise and the world around her as the visual language of this entire season. Every other woman in the frame is leaning into the performance of it, the elegance, the presentation, the careful construction of a marriageable image. And Eloise is standing slightly apart from all of it, watching it happen like she's studying something she's never quite been able to figure out. That tension between who she is and what society expects her to be has always been the most interesting thing about her character. But Season 5 looks like it's finally going to push that tension to its absolute breaking point. And the last thing the trailer gives us before it cuts to the title card is a single line of dialogue. Eloise's voice, quiet and almost uncertain in a way we've never heard from her before, saying something that sounds like she's talking to herself as much as she's talking to whoever is in the room with her. It's brief, it's understated, and it landed harder than almost anything else in the footage because it sounded like someone who has spent years being absolutely certain about everything suddenly not being certain at all. That is the Eloise this season is going to be built around. And if the rest of the season delivers on what this trailer is setting up, Season 5 might genuinely be the best one yet. Let's talk about the thing that every single Bridgerton fan has been quietly hoping for since Season 2. Because if you paid close attention to that trailer, and I mean really paid attention, there are enough clues buried in there to make a very strong case that Theo Sharp is coming back. And not just as a brief cameo or a passing mention. It looks like he's coming back as a central part of Eloise's story, which is exactly what this season needs. Now, for anyone who needs a reminder, Theo was the young printer and activist that Eloise connected with during Season 2. Their relationship was never given the space to fully develop on screen, but what was there was genuinely electric. He didn't treat her like a curiosity. He didn't find her intelligence amusing in that condescending way that most men in her world tend to. He engaged with her. He challenged her right back. He took her seriously in a way that nobody in her social circle ever really had. And you could see how disorienting that was for her, because Eloise is someone who has spent her entire life being the smartest and most difficult person in every room. And suddenly there was someone who could match her. That dynamic was cut short before it had the chance to become anything real, and the show has never fully addressed what that meant for her emotionally. But Season 5 looks like it's finally going to go there. There's a figure in the trailer, shown briefly and deliberately kept just out of clear focus, that appears in two separate scenes with Eloise. The build and the way he carries himself feel familiar. And more importantly, the way Eloise reacts in those moments feels different from how she reacts to anyone else in the footage. There's a guardedness there that isn't about discomfort, it's about self-protection. And if you've watched this show long enough, you know that Eloise only gets that guarded around things that actually matter to her. She can dismiss people she doesn't care about without a second thought. But the people who get under her skin, the ones she can't quite logic her way out of, those are the ones that make her quiet in exactly the way this trailer is showing her. The class difference between them was always the central obstacle. Eloise comes from one of the most prominent families in London society. Theo comes from a world that operates entirely outside of that, and in a lot of ways in opposition to it. That gap wasn't just about money or status. It was about values, about the kind of life each of them wanted, and about whether those two visions of the world could ever actually meet in the middle. In Season 2, the answer was essentially no, not yet, not in this version of the story. But Season 5 is operating in a slightly different Bridgerton universe than Season 2 was. The show has spent 4 seasons slowly expanding what it's willing to explore, what kinds of love stories it's willing to tell, and what kinds of happy endings it believes its characters deserve. The Benedict and Sophie storyline broke class barriers in a way the show had never quite committed to before. Francesca's arc opened the door to a completely different kind of love story. And now, with Eloise as the lead, the show has the opportunity to take everything it's learned and apply it to the most complicated and fascinating Bridgerton sibling there is. If Theo is back, and the evidence in this trailer really does suggest that he is, then the question isn't just whether Eloise falls in love with him. The question is what it costs her. Because in Eloise's world, loving someone like Theo doesn't just mean navigating her own feelings. It means making a choice about who she is, what she values, and whether she's willing to step outside everything she's ever known to build something real. That is a story worth watching. That is the kind of love story that stays with you long after the season ends. And the fact that the trailer is already hinting at that level of emotional complexity this early means the writers know exactly what they have in Eloise as a lead character. They're not playing it safe with her. They're not smoothing out her edges to make her more traditionally romantic. They're leaning into everything that makes her difficult and brilliant and contradictory, and they're building a love story around all of that rather than in spite of it. There's also something worth noting about the way the trailer frames the world around Eloise this season compared to how it's been framed in previous ones. In earlier seasons, the social season was always presented with a kind of sparkle to it, even when it was suffocating. The balls were beautiful. The dresses were stunning. The whole thing was wrapped in that lush, slightly heightened aesthetic that made Bridgerton feel like the most gorgeous version of a world that was also deeply constraining. But in this trailer, that sparkle feels like it's being interrogated for the first time. Through Eloise's eyes, you see the performance of it more clearly. You see the machinery underneath the elegance. And that shift in perspective changes the entire feeling of the season before a single full scene has even been shown. Eloise has always been the character who saw through the artifice of her world most clearly. Making her the lead means the show is finally letting that perspective drive the narrative rather than existing at the edges of it. And if Theo is the person she's navigating all of that with, then Season 5 has the potential to be something genuinely special. Not just good television. Something that actually says something meaningful about freedom, choice, and what it means to love someone in a world that was never designed with you in mind. Now let's get into the part that has genuinely been living in my head since that trailer dropped. Because while everyone is focused on Eloise and the romance and the costumes and all of that, there is something else happening in Season 5 that I think is going to completely change the fabric of this show in ways that go far beyond a single love story. The new whistle down. We got the first hint of it at the end of Season 4, that quiet, almost throwaway moment that most casual viewers probably didn't even register as significant. A new voice, a new pen, a new person sitting in the shadows of London society and watching everything with the kind of careful, calculating attention that tells you immediately this isn't someone who stumbled into this position by accident. This is someone who chose it. Someone who understands exactly what whistledown is, exactly what it can do, and exactly how to use it. And unlike Penelope, who always had a complicated relationship with the power she held, this new writer doesn't seem burdened by the same guilt. That distinction is everything. Because Penelope's version of Whistledown was messy and human and personal in a way that made it simultaneously fascinating and frustrating. She wasn't writing from a place of pure strategy. She was writing from a place of longing and pain and a desperate need to matter in a world that kept overlooking her. Her gossip had heart underneath it, even when it caused damage, even when it was genuinely cruel. You always understood where it was coming from. But this new Whistledown, based on everything the trailer is suggesting, operates from a completely different place. There's a coldness to the way it's being framed, a precision. The few glimpses we get of letters and reactions to those letters in the trailer carry a different kind of weight than Penelope's writing ever did. People aren't just gossiping about what they've read. They look unsettled. They look like they've been exposed in a way they didn't see coming and don't know how to defend themselves against. And that shift from Whistledown as social commentary to Whistledown as a genuine weapon is one of the most interesting narrative moves this show has ever made. Think about what this means for Eloise specifically, because here's a detail that I don't think is a coincidence at all. Eloise spent years trying to uncover the identity of the original Whistledown. She came closer than almost anyone else. She understood the power of that pen in a way that most people in her world didn't, because she understood that information is currency, and whoever controls the narrative controls everything. So putting her at the center of a season where a new and potentially dangerous Whistledown is operating is not just good storytelling. It's deeply intentional. Eloise is the one character in this entire show who has the intelligence, the instincts, and the personal history with Whistledown to actually understand what's happening before anyone else does. And if she figures it out, if she ends up in the middle of this power struggle between whoever this new writer is and the society they're targeting, then her season isn't just a romance. It's a thriller wrapped inside a romance. And that combination is exactly what this show has needed to fully become what it's always had the potential to be. Now, the question everyone is asking, and the one the trailer is very deliberately not answering, is who this new Whistledown actually is. And I have thoughts, because the show has spent 4 seasons quietly planting characters who have both the motivation and the means to step into that role. The obvious answer, the one that would feel like a safe continuation of what came before, would be someone already inside Bridgerton's inner circle. Someone who has watched the game being played from close enough to know all the rules. But the trailer is giving off the energy of something more unexpected than that. There's a moment, brief and easy to miss, where someone is shown writing by candlelight. You don't see their face, you don't see enough of their surroundings to place them in any specific context. But you see the way they write, quick and deliberate and completely without hesitation. And it reads as someone who has been thinking about this for a long time. Someone who has been waiting for their moment. The original Whistledown was someone nobody suspected because everyone underestimated her. If the show is smart, and it usually is when it's operating at its best, the new Whistledown will follow that same logic. It'll be someone the audience has seen and probably not thought twice about. Someone who exists in the background of scenes we've already watched, absorbing everything, saying little, waiting. And when the reveal comes, it should reframe everything that came before it in a way that makes you want to go back and rewatch the entire season with new eyes. That is the kind of storytelling Bridgerton is capable of when it's firing on all cylinders. Beyond the identity question, there's also the matter of what this new Whistledown is actually targeting. Because from what the trailer shows, the gossip this season isn't the usual social season drama about who danced with whom and which family is in debt. It feels more pointed than that. More personal, like whoever is writing has specific targets in mind and specific damage they want to cause. And given that Eloise is our lead this season, it would make complete sense for the new Whistledown to become a threat that intersects directly with her story. Maybe they know something about her. Maybe they know about Theo. Maybe they're weaponizing exactly the kind of unconventional life that Eloise is trying to build for herself, and using it against her in front of all of London society. That would be devastating in exactly the way great Bridgerton drama always is, because it wouldn't just be external conflict. It would cut right to the heart of everything Eloise is afraid of, which is being seen too clearly by a world that has never understood her, and using that visibility against her. The Whistledown storyline in Season 5 has the potential to be the most compelling version of that plot thread this show has ever done. Not because it's bigger or louder than what came before, but because it's darker.